tight. Jeez, can't even push it in. This thing is going to be a beast to break in, no doubt. So I like the carbon dust cap, very cool. I do also like the pulp paper that they use. It's kind of got some glitter in it, and I think it's cool. Then the red stitching. Stitching's always cool in a subwoofer until you have to refoam it. Then it sucks, but it always looks cool, and it does add strength. Now, as far as the direct leads, this looks to be about 10 gauge direct lead wire. You get a healthy amount here, not too bad. Let's look at the stitching here. So, looks to be pretty beefy stitching on the leads. The spider looks pretty girthy itself. Plenty of perimeter venting, and then you get this massive motor on the back. So you can see 6,000 watts max, the big massive logo here. And yeah, man, this one is pretty dope. The landing is glued and screwed, so yeah, this is a big boy. The next thing to do with this is put it in the Trooper and see what kind of damage we can do with it. I've already built a box per Massive Audio specs here, so we'll see how it performs in that box. I have other boxes we can try it out in if it does not work well in the one that they recommended, but they are the manufacturer of this speaker, so they know which enclosure it goes in best. So let's just jump straight to that. Before we get into the in-car testing, let's go over some of the highlights. So this HippoXL122R has dual 4-inch voice coils, direct leads, 430 ounce motor, cast aluminum basket, and 22 millimeters of X-Max. All right, so let's walk you through the setup real quick. I do have the Massive Audio subwoofer in. Now I've got 2 amp options. Why do I have 2 amp options? Well, I really wanted to put this Massive Audio to the test here, but it doesn't give you full power unless it's at 1/2 ohm mono. We're only going to be running 1 ohm mono, so I don't think that's going to give us enough power to get full output on this subwoofer. In fact, I know it's not at 1 ohm mono. So I've got a 5K right here. We'll do some sound demos with this, let you see what it sounds like with this amp, because I think this amp sounds pretty good. And if you're interested in a standalone amp dyno video on this Massive Audio amp, let me know in the comments below. Give me 1,000 likes on this video and I will do an amp dyno of this. So that being said, let me scoot this back so I don't pull out the wire from the AMM1 over there, but I do have the MVX 5K. Let me walk to the side and show you what we got going on. So I've got it wired up to the AMM1 so we can see what kind of output we're getting as we're running and where the rise is and all that good stuff. The only thing left to do is go ahead and drive to the spot where I demo, and we'll see what it does. All right, we're in the Trooper ready to get some demos. We're going to start with the Massive Audio amp, and we're going to do some sound demos so you can hear what it sounds like. Then we'll do a few SPL runs, probably do a sweep and then a few burps just to see where we're at. Then we'll hook up the NVX, give it a little more power, and see what kind of numbers we can actually get out of this thing. I have been using it for a week and a half, so I've got it, you know, as broken as you can get one of these subs in a week and a half, which is not a ton. With that being said, let's get into the sound demos. Then we'll get into the SPL demos and see what this Massive Audio subwoofer can do.
Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted. Now wake up. It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror. It gives no friend of me. It's not working out. Maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better man. Better believe.
All right, the NVX is hooked up and we're ready to see what we do with a little bit more power. One thing I didn't mention is the whole cabin is completely sealed and we're doing our score on the dash. So this is much harder than a simple outlaw score in the kick with the windows open, but I think it's a good way to get a solid score completely sealed and see what kind of increase, if any, we get with more power. I'll turn the AM1 on again, make sure that we are getting more power. We're getting a lot of box rise, sometimes up to 8 ohms, 9 ohms. I don't know how much power we're going to be able to give this sub like that, but we will give it our best shot. So let's get to it. $143.3 completely sealed with less than 2,000 watts. Not too bad if you ask me. So we had a lot of box rise. We got up to 4 ohms steady. We were getting around 1,700 watts at peak. It was averaging 1,400 to 1,500. So we weren't putting a ton of power to this, and we got 143.3. This thing can definitely handle a lot more power. Maybe I need to try another enclosure, try to get that box rise down a little bit so I can give it more power. But honestly, more than 4,000 watts in the Trooper is a stretch. We'll jump back into the studio. I'll come back with my final thoughts and we'll talk all about the massive Hippo subwoofer. I'll tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, all that stuff. So just like that, we're back in the studio and I have thoughts on the massive HippoXL122R. Now this subwoofer at $650 competes with the big boys, the likes of some of the bigger Sundown subs, the Solo X, and many more. Let's start with the things I liked about it. So it has those giant 4-inch voice coils. It's rated to handle 3,000 watts RMS. Of course, I wasn't putting over 2,000 watts to this sub continuously because we had some box rise, but the power handling capability of this sub definitely seems like it is there and it will handle massive amounts of power, pun intended. That being said, this has a pretty impressive X-Max of 22 millimeters, and it definitely gets moving depending on what track you're playing on it. As far as the sound quality goes, I think there are some good and then just okay things about this sub, mostly probably due to the recommended factory enclosure. On punchier songs where the bass is just super tight and defined, this thing does really, really well. It sounds great in those instances. When you have a kind of pulsing or bass that transitions quickly and blends together, in this enclosure, this one did have a little bit of trouble keeping up with those type of songs. So it depends on what kind of music you listen to. Now, for the things that, I didn't like as much. We already kind of touched on the sound quality, but I do think this is due to the recommended factory enclosed. It's very peaky, and we're going up into the mid-40s with tuning. In vehicle translated to like a peak frequency of 48 hertz, which is pretty high for a subwoofer for my taste. Now, other people may like this bass that plays up a little bit higher. It's a lot punchier and just doesn't dig down as deep. This could be cured, I think, with another enclosure. And if you guys are interested in seeing that, let me know. And we'll throw it in another enclosure. We'll rerun the test, and we'll see, if we lose SPL, gain SPL, and how it sounds. So if you're interested in that, leave me a like and let me know in the comments below. Outside of that, I don't really have a whole lot of cons on this sub. It handled the power. It did well. I guess if you're not a fan of direct leads, that could be a con for you. I don't mind direct leads as long as they're long enough to reach the area that they need to reach. The direct leads on this looked about 10 gauge, perfectly serviceable for this sub with the recommended power handling, so I had no issue with that whatsoever. The only other slight issue I may have is the rigidness of the suspension, but that's going to be like that on any SPL focus sub or sub that even is SPL adjacent. You know, the Solo X also has a very tight suspension that takes a while to get broken in. Although I do think that the suspension on this massive audio subwoofer will take longer to break in, as I don't think that I truly have this sub broke in as of a week and a half, that almost 2 weeks now that I've been playing with it. It's probably going to take much longer than that to get it broke in. I think I can squeeze more SP out of it. Matter of fact, I know if I had more power to give it, I could really get some more SPL out of it. That being said, I hope you guys do enjoy videos like this, and if you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video, comment below. Like I said, if I get 1,000 likes on this video, I'll go ahead and dyno the massive audio amp that you've seen at the beginning of the video. That's a very cool amp, and it has some cool features, so I hope we get there soon because I'm looking to do that amp as soon as possible. We did reach 1,000 likes on the Temu amp dyno, so it looks like I'm ordering some more Temu gear. Just keep your eye out, and I hope to catch every single one of you on the next video. I'd like to thank all my Patreon supporters, but the 6-star or more members get a special shout out, and that is 2001 Monolithic, Gene Nava, Joaquin Juarez, El Fuego Audio, Travis McClendon, Brandon Hanna, William Berg, Boxboy Audio Sound Solutions, Jesus Tires, Dennis Cromwell Jr., Scott Dilbeck, D. Stewart, David Kozlik, Scott McCord, Matthew Tolberg, Cornut, Trucker 9000, Bobby Burkett, Kevin Lautner, James Childers, Baba, Thomas Marshall, Living Loud with Andy, Neil Nato, Chris Cogburn, and Old School Stereo. For as little as $2 a month, you can join the Patreon team and get exclusive Patreon-only content, including a monthly Patreon-only hangout stream. It's a really good time. You guys are missing out, and if you want to join, check me out at patreon.com/hi-fi Vega.